My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for joining us tonight. Now, first story, the South African High Commission has led a 15-member business delegation to Ghana as part of renewed efforts to boost trade between the two countries. Speaking at a trade and investment conference in Accra, South African High Commissioner Lulu Zinwana said South African investors are poised to exchange business ideas for the expansion of the private sector. Charles Aite has more.
South Africa will be prioritizing deeper trade ties with Ghana in 2018. This is according to the High Commissioner, who has lamented the fall in inter-trade activities between both countries since 2015. Speaking at the South African Trade and Investment Summit in Accra, the High Commissioner revealed that the coming on board of about 50 South African investors to Ghana forms part of efforts to deepen bilateral trade.
Of the Joint Trade and Investment Committee. This committee is the implementing instrument for the MOU on economic and technical cooperation that was signed in 2011 by both countries. These are the enabling instruments that both governments have put in place in order to create a conducive environment for business to go about its business. Over the years, an exchange of missions and national delegations between our two countries has intensified. This has been realized through reciprocal visits by our senior officials in order to create the necessary mechanisms that build required confidence for our businesses to interact with each other to pursue trade and investment opportunities.
On her part, National Coordinator of the One District, One Factory Initiative, Gifty Ohenikunedu, said the policy firmly complements government industrialization agenda. She therefore called on the South African investors to take advantage of the policy.
Tariffs, electricity tariffs, His Excellency the President has reduced tariffs and now we enjoy 30% reduction for industries. Areas of support from private sector partners like investors coming from South Africa. We want to secure offshore financial support for the projects. We also want to establish investor matching networking for local businesses. We want to build human capital for the entrepreneurs and also staff of the Secretariat.
The South African Trade and Investment Summit in Accra is aimed at linking South African investors to the right and available areas of trade and investment in Ghana. One thing remains clear, South Africa is very much geared up to boosting trade and investment here in Ghana, as they say that the country is one of their key priorities when it comes to external investments. For Joy Business, Charles Aite reporting here at the Labadi Beach Hotel in Accra.
Well, moving on.
Are requirements before the board meets on Ghana, possibly next month.
And we are made to understand that this will be basis for a meeting on Ghana, and we are not really sure about the date here. Initially, we thought the meeting was going to happen on April 9. What's the confirmation we have on that?
You're right on that one. We checked the board meetings for April 9. Ghana is not on the table. What we are picking up is that end of this next month, or even in May. But what's the big deal about these board meetings? Ghana wants to end this program at the end of this year. Now, the longer these meetings delay, it affects the whole structure or the proposed timeline for completing the program this year and possibly ending the program to infinito, in April 2019. So the more these board meetings delay, the more it raises some uncertainties about government's commitment itself to the program. Then you don't want our donor partners to start reacting, because donor partners are also waiting for the IMF's report card on how we fared under this program before they disburse fresh funds to Ghana. So the longer these things delay, it's more of hurting the economy about whether government is committed to the IMF program or not.
But the emphasis has been on revenue. Why is the IMF pushing hard on revenue?
Last year, government had some problems. Now, the IMF is arguing that looking at some of the social intervention programs the government wants to pursue this year, it looks like they have to do more. Now, the economy is even expanding. When you look at the amount of taxes we are collecting in relation to the economic activities in the country, it's really, really low. In Africa, we are one of the lowest. So the fund is saying that do something about this. If our problems can be solved as an economy, it has to be revenue, revenue, and revenue. So take certain bold actions to collect more taxes from the people. It could be in the form of being more compliant or maybe hiking some of the rates so you can get more from the people, because they don't want us to get into that space again where we are having problems in raising the required revenue to fund government expenditure. Free SHS in the next 2 years, the budget will hit about 5 billion Ghana cedis. Where's the money going to come from? All the social intervention programs, there are extrapolations, you're looking at about 13 billion Ghana cedis in the next 3 years. If the donors are not going to give us the support, Daryl, it has to come from you and I. Either the rates goes up or they collect more.
I'll come back to you on the question that we posed in the intro as to whether or not government would heed to these proposals. Meanwhile, the IMF office in Ghana has been responding to this issue. Natalia Kuliadina, who is a country representative, explains why they are pushing for revenue measures.
I think that these are all positive developments. Many of them are yet to bring some revenue gains. Of course, given the number of programs and development needs that you are facing, I believe that it is very important for Ghana to have higher revenue. And at the same time, higher revenue would also improve Ghana's capacity to service debt, and then at the end of the day, it would bring Ghana faster out of this unfortunate classification of a country being at high risk of debt distress.
Are we still having that classification, or we are out of it?
Well, as a matter of fact, there have been very positive developments mainly because of continued fiscal consolidation last year, resumed fiscal consolidation last year and continued fiscal consolidation this year. So last year's debt to GDP ratio declined, and we expect that if fiscal deficit of 4.5% of GDP this year is achieved, then it would bring debt to GDP ratio even further down, and obviously this would put debt on a clearly declining trajectory, which is important and which would essentially pave the way to getting out of this classification of a country.
George, your interview with the IMF country rep. Now, question is, will government heed to this?
Well, Daryl, what we are picking up two things. Now, if government is able to go ahead of this planned Eurobond to raise all the $2.5 billion at a very competitive rate or cheaper rate, then they might not go ahead with those proposals. If they don't get the required amount they're looking for, it looks like they might hit the IMF call of reviewing these taxes. That could possibly lead to some rates being increased substantially, as well as mobilizing more revenue from certain areas. And this is something that we understand that government might have considered, and very soon something could be coming out there for you and I.
All right, George Yafe, thanks very much for that update. Well, speak of taxes, well, the Ministry of Local Government has launched the Tax Revenue for Economic Enhancement project in Cape Coast. The revenue collection strategy, which places priority on improving revenue collection and enforcement processes, is expected to improve revenue generation of the various district, municipal and metropolitan assemblies in the country. Speaking at the launch, head of the Local Government Service, Dr. Nanato Arthur, charged the district assemblies to toughen their revenue collection base to feed into government's beyond aid pursuit. Richard Kojunyako has more.
Revenue for Economic Enhancement project, according to the Local Government Service, comes at the opportune time to help increase revenue generation at the MMDA level and reduce the pressures on the consolidated fund. Launching the tree project in Cape Coast, head of the Office of the Local Government Service, Dr. Nana Atwata, expressed his excitement that the tree project has its focus on the property rates, the business operating permits, and the building permits. To him, these areas are a very important source of revenue for local administrations all over the world.
The overreliance of the DACF by the MDs, and the only source of revenue, is a source of worry. From an intergovernmental and fiscal decentralization perspective, the more revenue MMD can generate, the more autonomy they will have. Currently, internal generated funds are the only funds that MMDs have total control over. Because the common fund and most development partners' funds are targeted toward development projects and therefore cannot be used for recurrent expenditures, the ability for the MMDs to maintain new and existing infrastructure will become increasingly difficult if they are unable to generate adequate funds from their own activities. I'm happy to learn that the TREE project focuses on the property rate, the business operating permit, and the building permit. These are very, very important areas that we all need to focus on.
In a speech read on behalf of the Finance Minister, the Finance Ministry indicated Ghana, as a lower middle-income country, is transitioning away from the dependency on development assistance, and the government of Ghana will increasingly rely primarily on domestic resources to finance its development agenda. Ken Oforiatta explains the government is rather leveraging development assistance to build the internal revenue generation capacities of selected metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies to serve as a catalytic use of resources to ensure that economic development is sustainable and irreversible. Program Director, VNG International and the International Cooperation Agency of the Association of Netherlands, Peter Jonkin, urged the district assemblies to organize sustainable funding cycle in which they determine how these new revenues will be spent. This, according to him, will put them in the driving seat of their own future, will promote a sustainable increase in IGF and enable them to improve basic services to their citizens.
Because we are so proud to be part of the tax revenue for economic enhancement. I like the abbreviation, the acronym TREE, because it's simple. Which is an effort between the Dutch government and the government of Ghana to enhance the domestic resource mobilization.
Quick update on another story that is unfolding. The Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, is accusing BOST of misinforming the public in a statement released last week, justifying a $2 discount in the sale of crude to oil firm BB Energy. BOST had earlier stated at a press conference the discount was necessary to enable BB Energy defray costs, including insurance and shipment charges. Addressing a counter-press conference at Tema, Executive Secretary of COPEC, Duncan Amwa, described the justification as lacking substance, as he alleged the product has since at the end of trade remained in tank at all. He also accused BOST of conveniently commenting on the trade with BB Energy, which involved 942,000 barrels, while ignoring other sales which formed part of the 2 million barrels under contention.
If BOST should go to Rotterdam, BOST can buy FOB aboard a vessel. BOST cannot be able to buy in-tank crude in Rotterdam and process or refine same in Rotterdam and sell same in Rotterdam when it's not licensed by the Rotterdam authorities. In Russia, same. The United States would not allow, even Nigeria would not allow you to just go buy crude domiciled in tank, not aboard a vessel on their waters that you need to move to a destination, domiciled in tank. Indeed, it was fascinating when you listen to the famous Kweku Baako on Saturday on Newsfile, categorically states that per his checks, BB Energy was applying to the NPA as of December. It bought the product in September. October, November, December, it was then applying for authorization by the NPA to be able to manage the crude. Yet, for BOST, BB Energy needs no license. This license that they even applied to the NPA, according to the records of Uncle Kweku Baako, had been declined. So, when we raise issues of illegality, we are not taking them lightly, and we do not think that BOST coming out to insult our intelligence, that BB does not need a license to buy crude domiciled in tank, not aboard the vessel. Domiciled in tank. It's not even an ex-tank transaction where the crude is being pumped out to be sold. The crude is still at all. You sell the crude at all, and you call it FOB because Ghanaians do not understand FOB. I'm sorry, but BOST would need to come again. Or they have tried the gymnastics. Does it mean BOST should have local licenses from all this? That's what they ask. BOST indeed can buy from around the world, but
Other news tonight, Ghana is to commence base mapping by November this year as part of measures to digitize the nation's economy. The program is expected to assist with the efforts by the National Identification Authority to uniquely identify every Ghanaian. Speaking at the 55th anniversary launch of the National Investment Bank a while ago, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia disclosed that the mapping system, when successful, will improve ease of doing business and reduce interest rates.
I think that if you have those pieces of the puzzle in place, where the national ID is in place, the address system is in place, interoperability is in place, the land digitization of the land registry is in place, then you really begin to see its impact on interest rates. Because then it's a completely different economy. Our magician of a finance minister, Kenneth Oretta, he will do his thing and make sure you have the macro stability. That one will happen from our side, the macro stability. But the whole institutional side that we are looking at, to make sure it supports the macro side. Because for the longest time, we've been doing the macro side. We know how to stabilize the economy. But if you don't have these other pieces in place, then the banking environment doesn't change. It's still the same. And these other pieces is what I call the unwritten rules of the game. You are in a game where nobody is going to come and tell you, it's not written that you must have a national ID, or you must digitize your land registry, or you must have an address, or you must have interoperability. I mean, it's not really written. But if you're going to be successful in the game, you must have it. You must have these pieces of the puzzle in place.
The tourism sector has been described as one of the areas that could contribute a lot more to the economy in terms of revenue if given the needed attention. Well, as part of our Ghana Month series, this week we are heavy on the tourism sector. In fact, in the first of our series, we examined the state of tourism infrastructure in the country and their revenue generation potential. Bismarck Awusa joined the recent trip to the highest mountain in Ghana, that is Afadjato, in the Volta region. It was organized by Joy FM, and he comes through with this report.
Even though a site visited by many, commercial activities around the site are on the low. Also, due to the deplorable state of the road, many commercial vehicles do not ply that route, making motorcycle riders have a field day by charging exorbitant fares. Joy business checks have revealed that poor infrastructural development in the surrounding areas of Afadjato serves as disincentive for tourists. Here is the spokesperson of the chief of the traditional area, Stephen Ahliji.
We are doing everything that we can, especially the Union, Blede Community Development Agency in Accra, 1998. I started this project. They were promised. Netherlands government gave $2 million. But as you are here now, apart from this building, that's the only thing you can see. What have they achieved? So you see that the people are silent over this thing. It's of late that Blede Community Development Agency, that is the natives of Blede in Accra, cut across the globe, decided that no, we will take over the project ourselves. So these are the things they start. And I know by next year, the main park at the foot there will be well developed.
But what is the revenue potential of this tourist site? Mr. Ahliji responds.
People have been coming, especially on public holidays, and students across the country do come visit the mountain. That's why we have a staff here working daily, every day, to attend to visitors to the site. On public holidays, on average, we receive around 200, 250. It depends. Like an institution coming like this, and when there are many, they give them consideration. But an individual have to pay 5 cedis for an adult. In some cases, they take 7 cedis. Depends. Foreigners, they have their own price.
This means that with an average of 200 tourists, the site could be generating not less than 5,600 cedis monthly, exclusive of foreign charges. Meanwhile, some patrons of the site also had this to say.
More than worth it. I think this should cost more. The experience is different. It's different from what you normally do. Sleep in a hotel, just go and go to the zoo, see animals. This is something different and it's worth it.
The experience was great. This is my 3rd time climbing Afadjato. And I mean, always when I'm climbing it is a new experience. And I would love to do it almost, well, at least once a year, I would love to do it. So the experience was amazing. And even this one is much more, it's nicer because you have a lot of people coming and you have this cultural troupe coming to entertain you after you descend. And I mean, everything is great so far.
Normally, holidays and festival, if people come around, I normally bring drinks like can malt, can coke, and come and sell here. Because of the road is not good. So normally, if people are coming here, they make difficult to come. If they are coming, sometimes their car will break on the road, so they can't come here.
Looking at the number of persons that visit the site every year, it means that revenue in excess of 70,000 cedis is being generated annually, even with this state of infrastructure. This means that the numbers could improve significantly with a little facelift to the infrastructure around the facility, which could go a long way to improve revenue and witness springing up of some hotels in the area.
And that was Bismarck Awusa's report. Joining me in studio for a quick stock market update is Bertha Tibiga. Have you been to Afadjato before?
Well, I'm yet to try that.
You should. In fact, the next trip is to Nzule Zoo.
Okay.
Maybe you want to join the...
Sure, maybe.
Yeah, great.
Maybe.
Let's start with the equities. Bertha, you have some good news.
Yes, let me say that last week wasn't a very good week, but closing the week, we saw the market inch up marginally on its previous level, had more equities gaining as compared to the losers. The likes of Stanchart, though were part of the, like they were losing on the market, actually added up to investors' capital. And now when we look at the financial sector, the average return that we have for the financial equities is about 40.17%, with SIC and Societe Generale actually returning the highest. SIC is 280% by week close, year-to-date return to investors, and Societe Generale is 151.22% to investors. EcoBank is also returning positively, about 44.87%, but they released their full-year financials and it's not very impressive. And it's likely that we're going to see that impact the performance of the equity on the market, because last week, the 2 weeks that we had the market being bearish, and if you look at a 4-week period, the market actually recorded a loss. It's if that should continue, it means that we're going to have that impact EcoBank's performance on the stock market in the short term. But that also give investors the opportunity to come on board to invest in these equities to be able to make very good returns in the long term. And BOPP is one of the equities that are actually doing very well in terms of marginal price appreciations on the exchange, though it's not recording significant returns as we saw last year with the equity. This year, as of now, it's recording 15.66% year-to-date gain. But the financials of BOPP is also out and is very positive, and that's also going to actually have a positive impact on the equity. So we're going to see that marginal appreciations with BOPP continue on the stock market. Now, with the major indices, though we had the market go up marginally last week, Friday, we saw the composite index dropped by 0.27%. It began the week at 25.85% and it closed at 25.58% by week close. And the financial stock index also came down by 0.72% to close the week at 28.16%. It's moved from the over 30% return that we're recording on the markets to close at that margin.
All right. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very
much.
That was
quick.
Too.
Better to begin with the stock market update. And let's bring you our interview of the day. Are we doing that? All right. Okay, unfortunately, we can't bring you our interview of the day. That'll be it for tonight's program. My name is Daryl Kwao. We'll be back same time tomorrow.